Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Software Engineering Tales. Today, I will be talking with Mindi Weik, a US-based software engineer who happens to be also quite recent career switcher. She started in real estate years ago. We will cover her journey, her story, and talk about this transition. She has also other activities, like her own newsletter, and she's also organizer of offline events for women in tech. And we will talk about all that. Before we get to the episode, please hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any future content I will produce, and enjoy. Welcome to Software Engineering Tales. I'm really glad that you could make it, Mindy.
Thank you for having me, Pavel.
This is what I know about you because I know you from LinkedIn, right? And
hmm
we've been around each other for quite a long time now. And I know that you are similar to me, a career switcher, and you switched your career into software engineering, right?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. But what was really interesting for me was that, if I understood it correctly, you took like a few steps. It was not like me. I just quit my job, started learning, and then landing, software engineering job. So could you describe how did you do that?
Absolutely. When I first, I guess, started to realize that tech was where I wanted to be, I was working in real estate. And just before the pandemic hit is when I had this realization. And I was looking through a lot of different options, self taught. Um, there was an apprenticeship program I applied for. And I also was looking at some different learning resources. And well, I was in the middle of the apprenticeship application when the pandemic hit, and that shut down in the process. So that sort of took that option away. But and with the pandemic, real estate became a very strange place to work. Um, Having difficulties being face to face while meeting with customers
Yeah.
out in public was a little challenging. So what I did was I went looking for another job, in part because I needed to, but also looking more intentionally for something that was technical. So I found where I am now at Sierra Interactive. It is a real estate CRM platform. So it is a software for realtors. So having that real estate background helped me land a support role. So to your point about having multiple steps, I started in support. I learned the platform. I learned all about our third party APIs. And in the process, I moved roles a few times, but in the process, I decided that I wanted to pick back up on the engineering route. And I ended up taking a boot camp during nights and weekends. So I was still working full time. It was very challenging, but worth it. And let's see. So I finished that in April 2023. And during the 9 months that I was in my boot camp, I was speaking with the leaders of my company and made it very clear that this is the route I want to go. I really want to I want to be here. And we're a pretty small company, which made it a lot easier to help me with that transition. But essentially, as soon as I graduated, I was able to migrate over into engineering. So through a long roundabout way, I jumped into software engineering.
What made you make this decision, basically? Why did you do that?
Which part of it? Like all of it or particular?
Like when you decided, okay, I want to go with the software engineering, really, and I really want to go through this boot camp and invest all this time and effort and, long evenings.
I think I've always loved solving puzzles. Like I'm a huge fan of Sudoku. But I actually in college I took a course I graduated with a degree in communication and I took a course in website design, more so focusing on the content, but I really liked it. So I remembered what I had learned. I had started doing research and solving kind of like leak code style problems once I started to get the syntax, some little katas, and I was just falling in love with it more and more. So I tried the self teaching route, and it was really hard for me. I need accountability, and I needed someone to ask more questions to. So I did try to learn, and I learned a bit on my own, but I needed something to bridge the gap.
Yeah, yeah. This was similar with me because I was considering it for quite a long time, and I was like learning hour here and hour there, and it was not
Hmm.
moving anywhere, you know. And then when I really decided, okay, I'm going into career switch full time, I had to find some, you know, boot camp as a first thing because I was thinking like you need to frame it somehow. For the first reason is you don't want to leave out anything that you are supposed to learn, and I would left out
Yes.
ton of things. Like for example, databases. I didn't know that databases are important, and I didn't know what databases are really. I thought they are Excel sheets, but okay, let's not go deep into that. But I think it's a really good thing. But did you do anything like on top of that?
Like self-learning on top of the
Yes,
boot camp?
yes,
I think yes. We were obviously encouraged to do extra research for whatever we were trying to tackle at the time. I think I did spend a little extra time during the boot camp to do a few leak code type problems like here and there just to keep practicing. For myself at least, grasping the syntax practice is what really helps it stick. So I think I did some of that. I definitely did a lot of extra learning, like reading rather. So, like you said, like I didn't know anything about databases at first either, and I did not put that in my self-learning path. So I read up a lot on databases and how they work, what are queries, and what makes a good one versus a bad one,
yeah,
things like that. So yeah, lots of extra reading.
right. And so, uh, how were your first months of like as like junior developer? Because for me it was quite tough, especially you know considering that I was the oldest there and the least experienced. So imposter syndrome kicked in quite heavily. How
Mhm.
was that for you?
I think I am very grateful and lucky because I had an extremely supportive team. Granted, I knew a lot of them before I switched over. For the last 4 years, have been working with some of the greatest engineers all over the globe that I've met, and I really enjoy working with them. And so, getting to actually work with them more closely was really nice. And then there was a few new folks on the team that I hadn't had the opportunity to work with when I was in support and helping like create support tickets. But I feel like I was very well supported. The boot camp did a great job of preparing me to ask the right questions and to know where to look. So, like, Google searches are very powerful, as you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I was very encouraged to ask questions, no dumb questions. So, yeah, I think there was definitely, let's see, how do I want to say this last part? I have always been a go, go, go person. And I think my biggest challenge as a junior engineer was having to slow down. So I was working full time, as I mentioned, and taking 9 months of boot camp. So I was constantly doing something, constantly working really hard. And I burned myself out very quickly because I kind of kept up that pace.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me as a junior engineer, having done all that extra work, was slowing down, which I'm still working on.
Yeah. So you are now like on the job properly for like year, 2 years.
Going on 2 years, a little over a year and a half, I think.
Yeah. And if you think about like how you proceed your work and how you work on you know tasks that you are supposed to, do you do you notice some changes like in your behavior or in your approach?
Think that in the beginning, I still do a lot of like frequent, PRs and asking for feedback, but especially in the beginning, I asked for a lot more. Like I was looking for that validation that yes, I'm on the right track. Yes, I'm not going down a rabbit hole. And even more than when I first started, I have a better sense of what I can look for on my own and what I can figure out on my own. So I think the biggest difference is asking for more pointed feedback rather than validation. And I think I have a better sense of like now that I've worked on the project, I'm working on the same project as when I started. It's a really big um, greenfield sort of replacement project.
Yeah.
Um, but now that I know a lot more about our setup and how we operate as an organization and this particular project, I feel like I have a better sense of like suggestions I can offer or like I can have better communication about the project and ideas that I have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Okay, let's turn page completely. And something that I want to really ask you because I know that it's the topic right now. Do you think that it's harder for women to get into tech and into software engineering than it's for men? Or how is it? I guess it will be different, maybe on each like location or geographic location. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, I was going to say I can only speak from my US experience, but I think it will become easier in the long run. But for people like us who are career changers, I think it's challenging. When I was choosing my life path, as an 18-year-old Mindy, I I loved messing with computers. I loved like I don't know if you're familiar with MySpace, but I did a whole lot of HTML work and CSS work. I never even considered software engineering as a path. And I think it's in part because of like I grew up in a rural area, so it didn't hit the gender norms.
Yeah,
I think maybe I was afraid, who knows? But I think now it's more encouraged. It like STEM in schools is more encouraged. So I think moving forward it will become easier for folks to get involved earlier. But right now it's hard because a lot of us have to change our processes and take our experience and find a way to flip it to use towards engineering now. And that's not just for women, but I do think they have a little extra work to do.
yeah, yeah. It's not an easy topic to pick. I think US market is quite different to us in Europe or maybe folks in India. Uh, I think that there is quite a lot of layoffs lately,
Mhm.
especially in the US. Is it noticeable? Is it harder for people to get into software engineering these days? And what's the broader effect?
Yeah, it's a great question and also a pretty hot topic.
Yeah,
So I run a women and tech uh, meetup, or it's a meetup group, but it's a networking group, and I
yeah,
meet women from all over my state in the U.S. And I've also met lots of people just in other meetups in like conference environments. So it spans the gambit, but I've met a lot of people that are affected by layoffs here in the US. And it's definitely challenging. It's hard on your psyche. It's hard on your wallet. So I think a lot of folks have been affected by it, and I've met more than I expected to who are affected by it. As far as breaking, so getting back into the market is definitely challenging because there's a flood of talent that want to get back into it. As far as new engineers, I think it's definitely much harder than it used to be. Not only do we have to contend with this flooded market and people who are much more experienced than us taking, not necessarily taking all of the junior level jobs, but they are also looking for jobs and maybe a little bit desperate. So they might end up taking those jobs, not intentionally to hurt anybody, but to help themselves. And we also have AI.
yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are sort of pushing up against it, but I think that there are some companies out there who are intentionally hiring newer engineers and trying to train them up because they also recognize that there is some responsibility to train the next generation if they want to have future talent.
Let's stay a bit around this meetup group. So you started it, or you just joined, or is it your baby?
Kind of, but like I adopted it.
Yeah.
I adopted the baby. Katrina is the woman who started it. She moved from another state to Colorado in the US. And this was 2023 that I started with her. So she noticed that there was a lack of in-person meetups specifically for women in tech. And that was around the time that COVID, was starting to be lifted more. People were starting to meet up again. And Women Who Code had not yet shut down and they had not started in-person events yet. So there was a definite need for it. So she started the group and I came to a few of the events and noticed pretty quickly that she was doing it all alone.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, do you want some help?" In my previous career in real estate, before I was actually selling, I was an assistant and I put on like galas and events and, small gatherings all the time. So it comes naturally to me. So I started helping her out, and now I help with most of the coffee meetups, and we've done a couple of like micro summits and like brought in educational resources too. Um, so yeah, I adopted it and have helped ever since. And we've had a few people come in and out who've helped as well, but Katrina and I have been doing most of the work since she started it. So
Yeah. So can you share with me some like concrete stories or some, something that makes you feel like this is the right thing to do?
yeah, there's a lot. Um, I think um, let's see, that's a good one. I think one person that I'm thinking of currently, her name is Jenna. She is an engineer who's been working for, I think she was like 5 or 6 years into the field whenever I met her in Boulder. And she was working on like a C sharp, I believe was the platform, or it might have been C++, but she was working on a C based platform that she had been at for at least 2 or 3 years and was basically doing senior level work. And she met somebody else. Her name is Rebecca, and they became really good friends because of this. So not only were they both like the only female engineers, so now they had resources of, other supportive female engineers to talk to, but they kept in touch. And I saw Rebecca a couple months ago and she was like, "Oh yeah, Jenna got a new job and she's a senior engineer." So I think that's one that is coming to mind right now. There's a friendship, there's
Yeah.
support, there's like a cheerleader who's helping you get to the next level. I'm trying to think. There's so many others. There's been a lot of people who have come through who are affected by the layoffs, as I mentioned, and have come through looking for guidance and help and advice. So they've definitely gotten their fair share of that just from different people who are in the industry. Like we had a meetup not too long ago where an engineering manager came in. She's been an engineering manager for at least 9 years, been in the industry like 19 years, I think. Don't quote me. But but she gave all sorts of really great advice to these engineers who were affected by layoffs and wanted to get back into it. And like, here's what you can say in your interviews. And so in that sense, it was a lot of advice and support that way. And I think one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we've gotten. Sorry about my kitty. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that we've gotten is just a sense of community. So as I mentioned, there's not that many places for us to go currently. And obviously we could go to the typical meetups, but as with actual engineering, you're the minority. I've heard some sort of horror stories of people
Oh.
who like I went and there were like 2 to 3 women and we sort of sat huddled in the corner by ourselves just because it didn't feel very inviting. So we have a lot of very open, casual meetups, and a lot of people have really enjoyed it just to have the ability to speak, to ask questions, ask advice,
Yeah.
get feedback, and really, like I said, find that support. So
That's really cool to create such a
it's
safe haven and such a community. Is it also one of the reasons behind your like LinkedIn journey?
I think so. I mean, obviously, in some ways, it's selfish because I'm making my own brand and I'm trying to get out there, but I. I had so much positive feedback, not just from women, but from everybody that I have talked to, like yourself included, like in some way, like keep going. And the positive feedback loop has really helped me keep going. And I think I've heard that resonate with a lot of other people who are doing it and doing a good job. So I've taken a little bit of a break recently just because I have some personal things going on. But even when I just pop my head out of the sand,
Yeah,
someone will give me some kind of positive feedback that says keep going. So I know that it's doing something good out there,
yeah,
not just for myself.
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I do it for
Hmm.
the same reason, more or less successfully. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the next topic that I have prepared for you, and it's one
Hmm.
thing that I ask every guest that I have on the podcast. And I would like you to share some story about the time you messed up.
Oh, I've got one.
Yeah, and how you learned from that.
So let me preface by saying that our original setup at my work is outdated and we have a lot of tech debt. So let's just throw that out there. Basically, I work a lot with Twilio. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a voice over internet protocol service. So basically, it's a phone service over the internet.
Yeah.
And we use that for our customers to connect with their customers, their leads. And the first thing that I was working on was CNAM, which is basically caller ID for external phone. And I was working on a process to script and sync like all of our existing CNAMs. And we had to change the setup a little bit because of some complexities and the way it was set up. So when I went to hit start, whatever, um, I was using the wrong file. Oops. Triple check your files. I had like, I was testing all of this and I had several versions of the file that I wanted to use, and I didn't use the correct one. And I didn't notice it for probably like 30 minutes. Thankfully, like I said, I have a very supportive team, and I did the thing where you go right away to the people who are, next level up and you say, "Hey, I messed up. I'm ready to fix it, but I just need you to know that I messed up. And if you have anything to help me, please help me." And they did a wonderful job. They helped me walk through it. They like reminded me that everybody does it. It's okay. So we basically found I had to change the script a little bit to reverse what I had done and do it correctly. So I think like 150 customers were affected, and thankfully it was pretty low key. It was like this background caller ID service that nobody actually knows about in the background. So I just reset like 150 customers caller ID. So oops.
Yeah,
but it was able to be fixed relatively quickly. I think I was able to reverse the changes within a few hours. So then it just took a couple weeks for everything to get reapproved. Like 2 weeks roughly. Wasn't that bad.
yeah. What?
But yeah, I sure felt embarrassed.
And that's the last time you did something like that. You will remember.
No.
No. Okay.
Well, the last time I did the wrong file, but you're always going to make mistakes. Sometimes small, sometimes big, but
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah. And it's, you know, we take it for granted a little bit that it's okay, but I don't think that's the automatic rule in every company and in every team and in every environment. I think it's really, really important to support this like no blame culture. And I think
Hmm.
I think actually the most important part of your story is how you just went straight to level up and just said, okay, I messed up, and they supported you, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I said earlier, I am extremely grateful that I have such a supportive environment. But yeah, I mean, taking ownership right away also helped me avoid possibly several hours of trying something that wouldn't work and make like sort of snowballing the problem into a bigger problem. So I think, to your point, like taking ownership and going straight to the next thing helps you resolve it faster, but also helps give the opportunity for the leaders to provide that. no blame culture support.
Would you say that, taking more and more ownership around what you do is one of the signs of like seniority in software engineering?
I think so. As a junior, you're kind of just like throwing things around and seeing what works. But as you start to really understand what's happening, and as you have these experiences of uh-ohs, taking that experience and sorry, taking that experience and learning from it and applying it to your future tasks and projects, like that's what helps you become more and more reliable, more and more responsible, and people can trust you to take ownership whenever, like, if you can show that you can take ownership of these small problems or the small tasks that you're given, or even the large tasks that you're given, and show what you can do and how you can be resilient and how you can take it to the next level. I think that's what helps show that you're ready.
Yeah, that resonates with me. Definitely. Definitely. Right. One question that I really want to ask you is, do you have some like concrete examples how your previous career helped you in this job?
I'm trying to think of some specific ones because obviously and with a software that helps my previous career, I have been able to really leverage that domain expertise,
Yeah.
and it's been really helpful for me personally. I know a lot more than m most of our engineers, not in a I'm not trying to be unhumble, but I know more about being a real estate agent than a lot of our engineers. So sometimes I'm able to answer questions. I'm able to take that logic and understanding and my previous logic and understanding when I was in support to really apply it to engineering. So it was the same company, but a different role. Support also helped me learn a lot about digging for answers on your own. So trying to figure out what might be the root cause, trying everything, like so, a lot of that manual debugging. But yeah, I think there's definitely is that concrete enough for you?
Yeah.
Ye-
Yeah,
y-
100%. This one of the first thing that I saw, like from the mindset stuff, like what's the proper mindset of software engineers when I was preparing for, my first role, was some video from Uncle Bob. You know Uncle
Mhm,
Bob? Yeah. And
mhm.
basically what he says is, "Oh, I remember now. You read his
Clean
first,
code. Yep,
yeah,
it's
Clean
right over
Code,
here.
his first book, yeah, and you actually wrote a cool review on that." Yeah. Okay. Back to my question or what I was saying. Basically, what fascinates me is that very often to do your job properly, when you are writing software for launching rockets, you need to be half rocket engineer. When you are writing software for managing traffic, like me, you need to be half traffic engineer. And that's really challenging, but somehow really rewarding, at least for me, because I get insights into so many things that I didn't know are possible and didn't know how they work. So
Well, and it can only help you to understand what you're building and who it's for. So I think having the domain knowledge to any extent can only benefit you to your point.
yeah,
I think one thing that I would like to just express
yeah,
is that you don't want to lose yourself in engineering. And I think, I know you had a post recently about like, where do you find the time to do all of this? And, and I work on a side project outside of my, my day job as well. And it's so easy to lose track of yourself or get burnt out. And I think it's really important to spend time doing things that make you happy. I actually really enjoy public speaking, so I recently joined Toastmasters. So I have been giving talks here and there, small speeches, things like that. And I'm really excited to do a big talk actually in Washington
wow.
next week. That I'm very excited. Not Washington D.C. for anybody who's not familiar, Washington State. But I'm really excited to go out and just give a talk, and it's about curiosity It is applicable to software engineering, but it has, like, I'm not talking about tech. I'm not talking about like all the nitty gritty pieces that are involved in it and wrapped up in it. I am doing something that is fun to me and is helpful to other people. So my point is, don't forget to do things that you think are fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, that's. I think the curiosity is one of the key traits of anyone in software engineering. That and
Yeah.
this hunger for learning. Okay, let's wrap up. If our listeners should take just one idea, just one thought of this whole interview, what it should be.
I think give it your best shot always. Don't be afraid to fail because even if you make a failure now or have a problem now, people won't remember it, 6 months from now. So just do your best. Ask questions. Never feel afraid to ask questions. You can always rephrase it in such a way that it's like you're sincerely trying to gain information. So um, I could probably reword that to make it a little more clear.
No, that's fine. That's
I'm
fine.
sort of I'm sort of rambling now, but don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to fail. It's okay. It's perfectly normal. It's part of the process.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for
Mhm.
coming to Software Engineering Tales, and maybe next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having